Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first GWII CPD event of 2025, and thank you all for joining. I see we've got quite a few attendees online already, but we will give everyone a little bit of time while I do my intro to keep joining. I'd firstly like to thank our main sponsor, Emerald, for their contribution to this event. We are truly grateful for that. And to the guys, Foncho and Llewellyn from CN & Co, for facilitating these CPD sessions for us. We do have quite a few more coming up, so look out for those. But I'd also like to thank our organizing committee, Michelle Schuder-Rankin, for facilitating and coordinating the CPD points. Please make sure you stay online for the entire hour in order to be eligible for that CPD. And I would like to introduce our hosts. So today's session will be hosted by Craig Rosewarne. He's the Managing Director of Wolfpack Information Risk. Craig is a seasoned cybersecurity professional with over 20 years experience in this field. So thank you, Craig, for being here today. He's also a passionate advocate for crime prevention and awareness and has a strong background in risk management, education, and innovation. He will, in his past, served as an associate director at Deloitte and an EMEA director at the SANS Institute. So thank you, Craig, for making the time to speak to us today. And we look forward to hearing more about cybercrime self-defense and how we can all protect ourselves from these vulnerabilities that we are seeing more and more in our everyday lives. I'm going to hand over to you when you're ready to share. And please stay on. Like I said, we'll be having a Q&A session at the end and possibly some giveaways. And you will be required to stay on for the full hour for your CPD session. So thank you, Craig. We look forward to your presentation.
Awesome. Very excited to share with you what I have this morning. I'm just quickly getting my screen ready, and I must remember to share with sound, because as usual, we've got quite a few demonstrations that we do to help get the important messages across. All right, so just double checking, you can see my screen there?
Yes, we can't see the presentation, okay.
Can you see it
there
now?
It is. Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, super. Well, let's get straight into it. This morning, I think maybe just as a quick introduction in terms of who we are, so you know where we are coming from. Wolfpack founded the organization nearly 14 years ago, and we typically work with our country and other countries on the continent. We work with organizations, and then we also work with what we call vulnerable communities. So that is typically us in our personal capacities, our children, schools, NGOs, etc., to assist with pro bono services when it comes to if either they've been a victim of crime, or we do quite a bit of outreach campaigns as well. So also remember that if you have got a school, for example, and you're wanting some of our team to come and have a talk, we are very happy to make ourselves available to do that. And I think this kind of creates the agenda for what I want to cover today. I'm going to just touch very briefly on where we see things from a cyber threat point of view at an African level. And the bulk of the talk is going to be focused on you as an individual, focusing on cyber self-defense. And then there's a bit of a couple of nuggets that we want to share with you around protecting your organization as well. And also just highlight for you what is coming down the road for organizations in the financial services sector. What I want to do is encourage you. We've got a couple of our cyber ladies on the chat as well. So if you've got any questions, please pop them into the chat, and they will do their best to answer it for you. And at the very end, we'll have an opportunity to open up the floor and pass the mic around, and we can get into a good discussion there as well. All right. So I think just from a global drilling down to Africa point of view, it's quite scary when you look at the stat over here that Africa is now being seen to be the top targeted continent globally. Now we're seeing number of attacks per organization and the year-on-year change. So number one, let's not forget that Africa is very, very much in the crosshairs of cyber criminals. And it's fascinating when you look at the psychology, the motivations behind these attacks. Obviously, the big one is making lots of moolah. And then, of course, there is the element around espionage, stealing information, trade secrets, spying on people, etc. And no guesses who is the main segment that is behind these attacks, and it's organized crime, especially when it comes to financially motivated attacks. And of course, we're seeing more and more governments getting involved in this space as well. And it's always interesting to know your enemy and to see where a lot of these perpetrators are actually based. And this is quite fascinating when you look at, a large percentage of the criminals are actually based in Russia. We're even seeing Ukraine, for example, and America. So these are high-tech, highly educated people that are very good at what they do. But look at what we're starting to see now from an African perspective as well. So we've got countries like, especially in West Africa, Nigeria and Ghana, and also now increasingly attacks are being leveled from South Africa as well. And what we're seeing is a huge amount of activity, folks. I'm just going to, once again, just flick to my browser just to show you some elements there as well. So these are actual live attacks being tracked now at the moment. As we are sitting here, there's a number of attacks being launched from different countries. You can see the countries that are getting hit. That's just one vendor, for example. You can see how, all these guys just basically show a range of different types of attacks that are taking around the world. But you can see a huge amount of activity. You'll see a lot of cyber missiles hitting into South Africa as well. And then, interestingly enough, when you look at the large spam senders, South Africa is top of the pops today. We are the top spam sender globally. So this picture changes on a daily basis as these different criminals that are collaborating very, very well together, adjust their attack methods. And I thought it would be interesting just to share, hot off the press, we've got two major news items that have happened. We've seen Twitter, X, being taken down in a massive cyber attack. Elon is blaming the Ukrainians for this. But remember, it's very difficult to actually point the finger of attribution to anyone because, I can create a IP address using Ukraine's information, for example, and launch an attack. And it looks like it's coming from Ukraine, but it's very hard to work it out. Look at that heist. This is one of the biggest heists in the world. $1.5 billion was stolen from a crypto organization, and the finger of blame is being pointed at North Korea. So a big exchange called Bybit was taken for a large amount of money. And I got this email sent to me yesterday afternoon. There's been a breach that happened to Pam Golding as well. So I'm sure on a daily basis you are reading about different types of attacks. And I think what this means for us is that when we start looking and putting the magnifying glass over Africa, we start to see there's a very good Interpol report that comes out on a yearly basis. We're waiting for the next one to come out now. But no one really knows the true amount of money being stolen. It's in the hundreds of millions of dollars that is being stolen from organizations and from individuals. But the big ones that we are seeing is crime as a service, which I'm going to touch on. We are seeing business email compromise, romance scams as being typically in the top three that Interpol has highlighted from an African point of view. And Africa has responded, so for those of you that are involved in compliance and risk management in the insurance sector, the Malabo Convention has been brought out by the African Union. And this is now a collective of, if you're familiar with the Protection of Personal Information Act, this is basically POPI or GDPR from an Africa perspective in terms of protecting personal information and cybersecurity. So this means that if you're wanting to do business in Africa, you're going to have to start to comply with the essence of the Malabo Convention as well. So there's a nice roadmap document that actually helps you to achieve compliance. And then I think it's an important, although boring looking piece of paper or document, but a very, very critical piece of legislation that's been passed a few years ago now, South Africa's Cybercrimes Act, and we're waiting for the Cybersecurity Bill to be promulgated as well. So I'll touch on this a little bit later when I do a demonstration as well. Okay, so what we are seeing as the big focus areas from a cyber point of view is this concept of cybercrime as a service, human hacking and technology hacking. And I'm going to be giving you a few demonstrations in terms of how humans get hacked, the tools that are being used, how technology can be hacked, for example, as well, as we go through the session. So the first thing, just to highlight the cybercrime as a service concept. Criminals follow a very, very clever pattern of attack where they plan, especially for bigger heists, all right? Where they plan before they target an organization. They do reconnaissance, either using very sophisticated internet tools or using social media to build a profile on their victims. Then there's some form of impersonation where they pretend to be a senior executive or someone in IT, and then an attack is launched. And then once the money has been stolen, so that example I gave earlier about the $1.5 billion that was stolen, what the criminals are now battling to do is to monetize that, is to turn that, is to cash in the money. And that obviously happens through various means, like mules, for example. But I think the important thing to highlight is there are clever people around the world that develop these platforms that are running in the cloud, charged to people, or sometimes they'll actually provide it free. And with their affiliates, like a normal business, share in the profits with them, for example. And there's different ways of them targeting the victim, for example, and turning these attacks into money. And that money is then laundered and provided as backers commissions to the affiliates and back to the developers. So it is a very, very lucrative business. And I think a little bit closer to home, with so many people desperate for work, criminals ran a very, very nasty operation where they had adverts for internet people to go for contracts, very well-paid contracts in Thailand. And I know that 25 South Africans got caught up in this as well, but tens of thousands of people from poor areas have gone across for these work opportunities. And once they're there, they then get shipped across to Myanmar, basically locked into a compound, beaten, and they get forced into a life of cybercrime where they have to earn a certain amount, certain quotas on a daily basis. Otherwise, they get threatened and beaten up. So this is what we are dealing with at a global scale. And another little thing which is quite fascinating is, and I love my tools, my tech, and I'm always buying things online that are amazing tools. I mean, the barrier of entry of hacking tools is mind-blowing. If you have a look on the camera over here, this looks almost like a little toy. But this device, it's called a Flipper Zero. It is so powerful. I can actually use it, for example, to scan someone's access card and then emulate an access card. And I've done it in a couple of our client environments when we're talking to them, just to test it, to see if it actually works. And it literally cuts through physical security. I mean, you can scan a remote, for example, for your garage, or it can even scan a credit card. Fortunately, it can't emulate it because the encryption is quite good, but you can switch off projectors and switch icons on and off, for example. So, I mean, a simple little tool like this is incredibly dangerous. And a lot of these tools, for example, on the top right-hand corner, there's a camera light bulb that I bought off Temu for 268 Rand. And this thing's got 2 cameras in, it's got an app, it's even got a microphone, for example, that you can listen in, and a microphone where you can speak into it and it talks out. I have quite a lot of fun when I'm traveling with my dogs to talk into it and give them a bit of a fright. I mean, right down to a little cable. This looks like a normal little Apple. You also get them for Android, charger cable, but it's got a built-in wireless chip inside there, and it's got an app. So the moment you plug your phone, your tablet into it, for example, it activates the software, and from a wireless point, you can actually extract information, photos, see what people are typing, for example, as well. I mean, I can talk about all these different gadgets, but yeah, time permits. So what this boils down to now is, in every large-scale attack against an organization, when you look at the stats, over 2/3, sometimes to 80% of these successful attacks are as a result of humans being compromised. All right. And that's why what we are doing today is so critical, because we really have to look at patching our humans and making them aware of the different types of threats that are out there. So I'm going to be focusing the bulk of my time now in picking a couple of scenarios and helping to bolster your cybercrime self-defense capabilities. Now, we are making available a digital copy of this book over here, and there will also be printed copies of this book. I think there are 20 copies of them made available to you. So those of you that are going to be very good and fast at responding to some of the interactions that we're going to be doing, or those of you that ask the best questions or post the best comments, there's going to be a moderator that's going to be scanning the chat lines for that, and you will receive a printed copy in color of those books. The rest of you will receive a nice digital copy. And basically, we unpack over 35 different scams. We show you the red flags to watch out for. We also then show you how to defend yourself. And if you fall victim, what you can actually do about it. And in this morning's session, I'm going to be lightly touching on a couple of the ones that I've highlighted here: romance scams, phishing, business email compromise, online shopping, and then a bit of a dive into deepfakes and AI. All right, to make you aware of some of these things that we are covering. All right. So let's now go into what I want to talk about. So the first one now is, I'm sure many of you are using platforms like Takealot and Checkers 60 to get your groceries delivered. It is so convenient and really, really nice. What happens now when you start to deviate off the main trusted platforms, so to say? A scam site came up recently. You're not going to see the scam site because we've had the site taken down twice now. But here you'll see the link, tommyhilfigerza.co.za. And you'll see that there's a HTTPS link as well, which our security guys always say, make sure the site that you're going to has got a digital certificate in. But we've obviously got tools that we can use to bring the site back up. So for those of you, a very nice tool is something called archive.org. It's called the Wayback Machine. And you can basically go and put any site in there, and it goes into the archives and pulls up the site. So this is what the site actually looked like. You'll see it's incredibly professional, no spelling mistakes. Everything looks very, very legit. And, you know, from here, you can click on the products and go and buy these various products. So the question now is, how do you know that a site is a scam site? Because this looks legitimate. Everything, you know, looks and feels and smells like a legitimate site. So our guidance to you, it's very, very simple. You know, Google in this case is your friend. You simply take a copy of the site and you paste it into Google. And I normally just put the word scam behind there, all right? And you'll see that Google goes and finds a number of sites. Hello Peter, Scam Advisor, Trustpilot, for example. And when you go and visit these sites, you'll actually see that it's got 12 bad reviews. And you'll also see it's got 2 positive reviews, all right? But when you go into it, you know, for example, it says this site is not legit. I bought stuff. People are very upset, for example. But then when you scroll down and you'll see that Christine G said this site is, you know, it's amazing. So obviously be aware of fake reviews. There's a lot of people out there paying money to people to do fake reviews. And of course, this is more than likely the criminal going in and rating their site. A really great site that I use often is a site called Scam Advisor. And they've got a massive database of different types of scams, from romance scams to online scams. You can go and type the name of the site in there, and it will actually show you information about that and highlight if it is a scam or not. Just out of interest, for a bit of fun, I went and took the GWII website and I went and put it into the Wayback Machine, and I went back in time to 2016. Any of you recognize any of these fine ladies over here? Any of you on the actual call this morning? It's good to see that that you are supporting a very, very good initiative. So yeah, and I think the lesson here is, especially for our kids as well, whatever we put on the internet stays on the internet. All right. So an important lesson that many people have learned the hard way. Whilst we're talking about shopping, I think just to give you a bit of a tip, you know, if you are, obviously Takealot is a legitimate site, but if you are wanting to go and buy something on Takealot, you know, especially when it's Black Friday or Valentine's, you get these massive savings, 30% off, 40% off. How do you know that that is actually legitimate, that they're not just trying to con you and inflate the deal? So, for example, maybe you wanted to go and buy this particular brand of perfume, And you'll see over here, it was 1,389 Rand. It's now 694 Rand. And that's a really good deal. So I better quickly go and buy it. How do you know that that is legitimate? So all you do is you copy the link of the actual product. And there's a lovely little site called Serval. In Serval, you can go and paste the link in over there, for example. And what it does is it comes up and it gives us pricing going back to 2023. So here's the list price over here. And here is actually what the current price is. So they are currently saying now it was 1,400 and it's now that. But we can actually go back in time and see that the price has basically hovered around this mark here the whole time. So in my mind, that actually is not a good deal at all. Hope that helps you. When you are online looking for another type of product, you know, so many people, I think in the olden days, before social media and smartphones and things, when you wanted to try and find a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you would go to a party or a club and do your best dance moves and hope you can impress people. Nowadays, there's so many different dating sites, and it's literally a matter of swiping left and swiping right. But how do you know that what you are swiping right on, I think is the good one, is a legitimate person, that it's not someone else that we think. So ladies, when it comes to romance scams and you see a picture of typically a soldier or someone working on an oil rig with big muscles, and you just fall head over heels in love with the person, you have to do a couple of steps to make sure that who you think you're talking to is who you are actually talking to, and that you're not talking to different types of cyber criminals. So these are all AI generated things, just to highlight. Typically, people sitting in the not Middle East, in Eastern Europe, Russia, for example, are often the architects of the programs or the platforms. The West African guys are the specialists when it comes to romance scams. The Indian call centers are the best when it comes to Microsoft virus in your computer scams. And of course, you've got the North Koreans, for example, that are hacking for large amounts of money. All right. So let's just make sure that before we start to share our deep secrets and our money with people, we need to do some validation. So in the olden days, it was quite hard for a criminal who wanted to create a fake profile. You know, if I wanted to pretend to be a nurse, a French nurse or a Russian nurse targeting maybe men in America, for example, I would go onto Google, pretty nurse holding a teddy bear, all right, and try and use this picture. Yeah, you can see there's a little watermark. I would have to try and get rid of the watermark and try and find other pictures that I can use, okay? So those days are long gone now, because, you know, I think we all know nowadays that if you've got a picture, you can simply right click on it and say, search by image, and I can go into Google and Yandex and a number of other tools that I've got, and immediately these tools will pop up and say, oh, that nurse picture actually belongs to someone else. So this is not a legitimate picture at all. I need to log into I had to restart my computer earlier. So, you know, that makes it a lot harder. So luckily for criminals nowadays, there are a range of different tools that make it incredibly easy to build up a fake profile, get pictures, very, very believable pictures, and even scripts that are available online, or use AI to write your scripts. So let me show you what I mean by that. You know, for example, I can go in, there's a tool called Fake Name Generator. It's actually should be called Fake Identity Generator. And if I want to create a persona of a French person living in South Africa, and let's make them young, 19 to 24, and I say generate, okay? It basically goes out and it creates a name, Cerise Langelier, gives me an address, it gives me a potential ID number, it gives me a cell phone number, birth date, zodiac sign, even a burner email account that I can use, which us security guys, it would be almost impossible to try and trace that as well. It gives you a whole lot of other elements as well. Oh, I see she's a plumber. But anyway, from here, I can take this and use it. The only thing I don't have is a nice looking flower to attract the honeybees, right? And, you know, that's where very, very powerful tools, inexpensive tools. One of the platforms we actually use is a platform called FreePick for our pictures and graphics and things like that. So we've got a subscription to that. But for example, if I wanted to go in and all I had to go in and say it was pretty nurse holding a teddy bear, and it comes up with a whole lot of different options, for example, I can even then go in and create a short video from that as well to make it look a bit more believable. But you know, choosing these pictures, I can then go and say reuse that picture, and it creates, you know, nurse holding a clipboard or nurse having coffee, for example, and it makes it look incredibly believable. I can even then go in and create a voice. So, for example, if the nurse is in South Africa, for example, or in France, I can go and choose a voiceover and
Hello, insurance ladies. I hope you don't fall for these types of scams. Stay safe. Love, Nurse Jenny.
how realistic is that? I mean, that I just literally created within a few seconds. And here's the other interesting thing as well. You know, the romance scammers would have these amazing scripts at different phases of the conversation. So like cute little introductions to try and hook the guys in, for example, and then your introduction conversations, for example, and questions to ask and answers that you can give, for example, because often English wasn't their first language, so they could just copy and paste from here, for example. But I mean, that's also now a little bit old because, you know, you can go into ChatGPT and I could say, write a detailed script that a shy nurse can use to strike up an email conversation with American men with a view to romance and ultimately getting invited to come and see them in America. And yes, some subject lines, for example, to try and hook them in, and your icebreakers, for example. I'm not here to sell you a magic potion or ask for a kidney. I came across your profile. Seems like you're someone I want to get to know. So very well written and engaging. I mean, when I was reading some of these, it's actually really, really clever humor added to it, for example. And then from here, the conversations go from flirting to, yeah, let's just say deeper conversations with your potential person as well. So this is what people are now having to try and combat. And AI does not stop there, because from a deepfake point of view, we've created lots of different deepfakes. For example, we did a whole session on the Devi show on ETV recently, where we created Devi and showed her different ways of doing it. There was also another link, for example, if one of my team can maybe post the new one that we did now in February with romance scams, linking a Sangoma scam with a romance scam. Very, very cleverly done. And we provided input into that as well. It's quite an interesting video to watch. But let me just maybe show you some of the deep fakes. And then I've got some tools that you can use, free tools that you can use to actually go and spot these deep fakes. So here's just some voices, for example, that we created using that.
Folks, tremendous news. 2024 is going to be huge, believe me. I'm throwing my hat.
So there's Donald Trump. It's very easy to do Western sounding voices. Yes, Devi, for example, it's a bit harder to do South African voices.
Please treat this seriously. It is no joke. I have been kidnapped and forced to read the following.
So those of you that know Devi, that's pretty accurate in terms of what she actually sounds like. And of course, we can take Devi's face and we can create action videos, for example, or, you know, yeah, for example, we've taken Devi's face, put it into a Bollywood video. And this is just using either free or very, very cost-effective tools online. Those of you that remembered my deepfake romance scammer, the muscled soldier guy, we took his face and we put it onto a movie trailer, for example. Look how realistic it is. Sorry, Devi, not your turn. It's now.
Wakanda forever! It is your time to be king.
I mean, look at that. Perfectly done. So we're really now living in an age where it is so difficult to determine what is real and what is not real. Social media can be spoofed as well. So, for example, WhatsApp chats can be created, people's names, phones, messages can be put forward as well as, for example, one of the reasons that Devi reached out to us was because people were creating deep fakes of her and Leanne Manas and getting them to promote these weight loss jellies, for example, and just show how easy it is to create fake Instagram posts of Devi promoting a product, for example, just with putting information off the internet. And I think just to get one of the first quizzes going, if you can just type in the chat here, when you look at these two pictures, which is the real Tom Cruise? Give you guys a few seconds to type in the chat. So is it picture A or is it picture B? See, a lot of people are putting in different elements there. I see A, B, none, neither. Okay, good stuff. You guys are fast on the key. The answer will be provided just now, and I'll actually use a tool to show you which is the real one. So with all these deep fakes going around, how do you actually know what is real and what is not real? So here's a couple of tools just to show you very quickly that you can actually use to help spot these nasty deep fakes that are out there. So the first one, for example, is if you've got a video, there's a tool called GWII. And what I've done here is I've uploaded the Bollywood video of Devi. It fooled 2 of them, and 2 of them actually picked it up as deep fakes. So GWII is the tool that you can use to spot videos. If you've got a voice, for example, here's where I loaded the Donald Trump. I thought it sounded like Donald Trump, but Resemble is the tool. It said, no, wait, this thing is a fake. If you've got a picture, for example, that you're wanting, so maybe you're on a dating site and you're scrolling through all the different pictures and you want something real time to pick up what is real and what is not real, there's a nice little plugin called DuckDuckGoose, which I've actually got running in my browser over here. So for example, the question I asked earlier, which of those is the real Tom Cruise? This guy over here on the left is a guy called Miles Fisher, who's a Tom Cruise impersonator. This is the deep fake of Tom Cruise, where he ran the software. So the correct answer was neither of them was the Tom Cruise. So well done to you for those. And you'll see my DuckDuckGoose plugin over here has picked this thing up to say it might be a deep fake. All right, so that does image analysis on the fly. And something that does video and images as well as pick up on fake news, which a lot of reporters actually use. There's a tool or a plugin called InVid, all right, that actually allows you to scan videos and images. And this thing is amazing because you can take a fake image, for example, of a guy on a kayak getting swallowed by a whale in a lake, and you can literally break it down and look at different layers of the photo and see what was edited and what was not edited, for example. You could really be a cyber sleuth with that, for example. I mean, you can even, for example, on the demo here, there's a video of a fake video of this ride in Korea, for example, which you can upload and analyze. And there's also a nice community part where the people actually say, no, this is fake. So, for those of you that have got family members on your WhatsApp groups that are always posting everything and saying, is this real? Is this real? You can be the voice of reason on your chat groups. So criminals really just use, if you're familiar with optical illusions, where you're looking at something. So if you're looking at this image over here, you'll see how those dots change color from white to black. Those dots are all just white, but your brain is telling you that there are some black dots in there as well. And this is a static picture, but your brain is telling you this picture is moving, right? So these optical illusions where you're getting tricked, the criminals use this very similar technique called social engineering to con you. And I just want to share with you some of the important things here where these are happening on a regular basis. So phishing, we've seen a rapid advance of phishing attacks. Phishing attacks are typically using emails, but they've now morphed and adapted where there's an attachment for you to click on, or there's a link that they want you to click on, or there's a form they want you to fill in, for example, or to download something which could end up being malicious software, all right? And one example of this, some of you might have received this as well. So a courier note from Ram Couriers, for example, saying there's a package waiting for you. And you see they made a bit of a mistake here. They put the currency on the wrong side of that. So this wasn't so good. But these guys, I mean, this is one that we received a few weeks after that, where they made it look a lot more professional. And once you click this link over here, which you must never do, okay, rather have someone investigate it for us. We had our team analyze this. And you can see it takes you to a site which is meant to be a Ram Courier site. But of course, you can see that this is a Spanish site. But it's a very good looking site if you didn't actually look at the actual URL at the top. And of course, what are they wanting you to do? Enter your credit card details in, all right? And once you do that, Now, here's where you must understand, like there are call centers, there are call centers of scammers waiting for you to enter these details in. The moment you enter your details in, they harvest your credit card details. They've got sites lined up where they want to go and buy vouchers or buy something else online. They enter your credit card details in, and of course, your security helps to protect you because it asks for a one-time PIN, all right? Now, the one-time PIN that you're getting back, this is obviously a scam website, and there's nothing happening in the background, but they're stealing your information. They're entering your details into this, maybe say Apple's, to go and buy iTunes vouchers. That one-time PIN is coming back from that site to your phone. You think you're entering it into here, so you go and type the OTP in. Now you've given them everything, and then they start cleaning your money out. All right, so be careful about that. Attacks have moved on from email as well, where you get a voice call as well. I got a call at 7 o'clock at night from MTN, a very professional sounding guy, to say that there's someone is trying to, Mr. Labuskachny is trying to do a SIM swap on my account. Did I give him permission? He caught me off guard, and I said, no, I didn't give permission. And he said, well, sir, we've just sent you a one-time PIN. Please give us that PIN so we can immediately block this fraud attempt. And that's obviously when the penny dropped. And I said to him, sure, but you're good, eh? He said, what do you mean, sir? I said, you really so professional for a scam. And he just put the phone down. So be careful. They will phone you, and really, really professional sounding guys. And of course, smishing. So if you've got a smartphone nowadays and you receive an SMS, SMS has got a link where you can actually push here to talk to the fraud operator, or push here to go and update your FICA details. And we're now seeing quishing, all right? Those of you with your phones, you can scan the left QR code and type in the chat what is the site that you have been directed to. And if you need a letter from us for your partner, we will be happy to provide that. This was part of a simulated test. There we go. Ticket saying you are first off the draw. Well done there. And there's another QR code there on the right-hand side. What I would ask you to do is that actually takes you to a Google review site of Wolfpack. If you don't mind, if you're okay with it, you can go in and just give us a little bit of a rating on Google, because what it does is it helps other victims of crime actually find us. And then, as I said before, we are happy to provide pro bono services to individuals or to NGOs. And phishing has now moved on to something called business email compromise. And yes, unfortunately, we are seeing people losing large amounts of money, especially individuals, where CEOs are being impersonated, for example. There's fake invoicing schemes. So basically what happens is the criminals hack into your email accounts, they sit and they watch what's going on. And at the end of the month, when it's time for invoicing to go out, then they've already stolen your templates. They understand who's the right person. They've got your email signatures, and they impersonate you and send out invoices to your customers, for example. The big one is an attorney impersonation. We've seen some horrible cases here where people, have worked their whole lives to pay off their house. They then go to a conveyancing attorney to have it sold, and we're dealing with large amounts of money. The attorneys get compromised, and then they end up paying money into the wrong account. So please, and the lay of, or the law of the lay of the land in terms of law is, if you don't do a second validation, so you don't phone up the lawyer or send a WhatsApp to them or go and visit them, even if they were hacked, you are still the person at fault. And according to a ruling now in the courts, it's your fault. Sorry for you. You've lost the money. All right. And criminals don't actually care about who they target as well. I mean, even, non-profits, for example, are being targeted. Here's 2 proof of payments, for example, that we were sent. So obviously our security blocks us straight away, because, when I get a remittance and it's a web file, that's obviously immediately suspicious. So security blocks it. But what criminals are doing now is they have a PDF document. So they have a link to a legitimate site like a Dropbox site. On there is a document, a PDF document with a link to another site, a malicious site, or a malicious attachment, for example. So like layers of an onion, they're actually burying the malware deeper in the document. So when your security scans this, it sees a PDF with a link to a legitimate site, it lets it go through. One quick little story is, and I often use my wife, who we actually both volunteer for a non-profit organization that feeds vulnerable children. And this very well-run organization, every penny gets spent in the right place. They got a phone call a week before the attack actually happened, pretending to be someone that wants to donate a large amount of money. And they've got some information. Who are your large suppliers? They want to just validate you, for example. They went and impersonated their large supplier that actually packages all their food. They sent a payment at the end of the month, which the junior accounts person actually loaded the payment, and my wife basically had to go in and do the approval. And of course, my wife luckily listens to her husband talking about all these different types of scams. She was immediately suspicious. She phoned the supplier. The supplier said, no, that wasn't us. She went ice cold, and immediately the attack was stopped. And now recently, she got an email from a company in Cape Town saying, we've selected you to deliver 58 computers to you, and all you have to do is to pay for the freight, basically. So, I mean, here's the invoice that they actually sent. If you want to, there's the criminal's name. You can actually go on to Truecaller, and that's basically what we've done, is we've blocked them and highlighted them as a scammer, for example, on Truecaller. So hopefully any other people they contact. But yeah, it's terrible. No mercy at all. Okay, so the last thing that I want to share with you is just some guidance in terms of cybersecurity from an organizational point of view. And I think the easiest way for me to explain it is, when you go and see a doctor and you've got maybe headaches, or you've got a chest and knee pain, or you're gaining lots of weight, for example, the doctor's not just going to give you medicine straight away. They're going to ask you some question, and there's some underlying circumstances, very stressful work, and you smoking and drinking, eating unhealthily, for example. And they send you off to go and meet with other specialists that maybe are going to do an MRI or ECG, do blood tests, and then they come back and they ask you about your family history, past operations. So there's some due diligence that gets done on the person. And then the doctor gives you your solution. So there might be some medication to take away the pain in the short term. Maybe there's a surgery on your knee, for example. But then, yeah, you've got to start changing your lifestyle. You've got to eat healthier, get exercise, etc. With that same mindset, that's the same approach that we recommend, that obviously when you're talking to an organization, you've got to understand the business context and what incidents have happened, what audit findings there are, what are the big risks facing the organization, for example. And of course, there's a short-term treatment plan to put out the fires, and there's a longer-term marathon in terms of building cybersecurity from a technology and from a people and a process point of view as well. And these are really the main areas that we're seeing. So for those of you involved in risk and compliance and security and IT, from an executive point of view, it's a team sport. Executives, and we've highlighted in red, and then in amber, red is the main ones that we're often seeing neglected. Governance, obviously risk, compliance, assurance. And these are the key areas from a layered security point of view that are critical. And of course, in your world, cyber insurance is becoming very, very popular as well, where you can't stop all attacks from happening. So you've got to build in that layer of cyber insurance as well. And I'm sure many of you, hopefully everyone, is aware of what the Financial Sector Conduct Authority and the Prudential Authority have pushed out in terms of the cybersecurity joint standard that has now been pushed to, and it doesn't matter if you're a large insurance company or a bank or a broker with 3 people, you have to comply to this as well. And basically, it's very, very onerous in terms of all the different requirements that you have to meet, okay? What we've actually done, and if you are in the space, let me just quickly switch across to there, is we've actually created a toolkit. So you can reach out to me afterwards or to our team, and we've actually created a rapid assessment that you can assess your organization against, find out how you are ranking, for example, and then there's also a more detailed assessment. As I said, it's quite onerous, so there's all of that. There's even a simple project plan that you can follow to be compliant, and we've also mapped it to other security standards as well. So happy to share that with you as well. And I think one other thing which is important in terms of customer education as well. So the FSC actually pushed on to, you already are expected to spend 0.4% of your after-tax profits on education. And you now need to show how you're doing this in terms of educating your customers in terms of scams and cyber frauds, for example, as well. All right. So what I'm also happy to do is you are welcome to utilize the book that we've got, and we've also got relevant short videos and other things as well that you can use as part of your customer engagement or customer education thing as well to show compliance. And then, of course, as the criminals are using AI, really look at using AI tools to help simplify cybersecurity management. So there's some really good cost-effective tools out there as well that make life a lot easier. And then the last little part is just to really encourage you to secure any device you connect to the internet. So if you think about it from your home point of view, how many devices you've got, whether it's your computers, tablets, smart TVs, baby monitors, and just to reinforce the message that any device that you connect, it's not only your neighbors that can jump onto your Wi-Fi, but it's anyone in the world that can actually connect to your technology. So, for example, there is a tool here that I wanted to quickly show you called Shodan, all right? And Shodan is basically allows you to go online and search for different types of things. So, for example, I went and searched for a specific type of CCTV camera, for example, that people install in their homes. I've now narrowed the search down to only show me this in South Africa, for example. I can see there's 374. You can also even go and see which organizations, for example, are using them. And then I can actually even draw down on a map, for example, and see where these cameras are. So apart from seeing where they are, I can actually click on any one of these dots here, and it actually takes me to the actual camera itself. This could be a camera at your home. This could be a baby monitor in your home, for example. This could even be medical devices in organizations, for example. It's actually very, very scary where, I've just done a quick search on some medical devices around the world, and it actually takes me to the username and password. And all I have to do is Google what the standard industry username and password are, because people often don't change those, and boom, I'm in. So bear that in mind, folks. And I think just to wrap up, in terms of if chocolate is information, you don't want to just leave your information lying around, okay? So to use the analogy of two well-known chocolates, so for example, a text bar, if you look at a text bar, the information, the chocolate is protected with different layers. Smarties, for example, the chocolate is actually wrapped up in different shells of different colors and put into a box, all right? And from a layered security point of view, you can think of the same thing with your home, where you've got preventative measures. So you've got a wall, electric fence, cameras, you've got dogs that will detect. You've got to start thinking in terms of these layers to protect your home and your information as well. And from a Smarties point of view, managing passwords is very, very complex, because you've got to create these strong passwords. That's only one piece of it. So, never use the same passwords. So Smarties are different colors, have different passwords for different accounts. And I use the analogy of the Smartie box actually being a password manager, where it manages a lot of your passwords. And also, please enable multi-factor authentication. That's where you've got a one-time PIN or an app to authorize. Okay. I am running out of time. So what I wanted to just lastly share with you in terms of your children, just some quick guidance. There's a lot of harmful content out there, folks. So don't just give your phone to your child or a hand-me-down computer. You've got to enable some sort of security on your devices. Okay, otherwise, so make sure that safe search is enabled on your mobile devices, for example. There's also a very nice little kiddie search engine called Kiddo that doesn't have any harmful content. And then Apple Screen Time and Family Link for Android devices is a really powerful way of helping to manage your kids, what they've got access to, how much time they're spending on the internet. And just as a reminder, and this links back to the Cybercrimes Act, for example, if you are ever bullied or harassed online, your children are bullied, remember there are rights. And just a little list for your information. These are the different types of legislation that is out there. And the Protection from Harassment Act, for example, to get a protection order, and the Cybercrimes Act, for example, where if someone perpetrates a cybercrime in terms of cyberbullying, they can get quite a hefty jail term and a fine as well. So with that said and done, I thank you. I had a lot to share. I see that the chats have been very, very busy, but over to the team.
Thank you so much, Craig. Yeah, the chats have been exceptionally busy. So I'm just going to ask if there is anyone who has a particular question that you would like Craig to answer. If you could please pop that into the Q&A box. It just makes it easier for us to manage than having to go through the chat box. I'd
Sorry,
appreciate
I think you're
that.
on mute, Villian.
Sorry, can you hear me?
No, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Thank
you. Sorry, I don't know if I'll just repeat what I said. The chat is very, very busy. So if we could please ask that if there are any questions, if you wouldn't mind popping it into the Q&A box, it just makes it easier for us to manage and to filter out the questions that you would like Craig to answer. But Craig, thank you so much for what was an exceptionally informative session. I think from a questions perspective, the first one we've got is just regarding your first or second slide, where Africa seemed to be the target for cybercrime. Is there a reason why that is the case?
I would say because we are less prepared than typically the States, Europe, Israel, who have far more advanced in terms of national structures. So there's a lot more money to be made there, but they get your chance of getting caught by their law enforcement elements are a lot higher. So they pick on newly established countries where things aren't quite where they should be, and there's still really good money to be made anyway.
Okay. And then the next question we have, there was a lot of talk and interest in the cables that were compromised. And so one of the questions we got was, how would we know if we have a compromised cable, and how do we block it from stealing data from our phones or laptops?
Yes, I mean, prevention is always the best thing. So if you see a cable lying around, and my kids are always stealing our charger cables, we're always fighting for cables in the house. But obviously, if you pick up if I pick up a USB stick lying there or a cable, I would not use that. Because even just touching on another little side topic, spyware can also be deployed, which does a very similar thing onto your phone, oftentimes by clicking on links, or the more sophisticated intelligence agencies can actually deploy spyware on your phone, often without you even knowing it, all right? And the signs there are, for example, your phone starts getting hot, your battery life is not as good anymore, your data is being depleted faster than normal, because this thing is now communicating with its host, which is extracting information from you as well. So typically, if your phone starts to behave a bit erratic, or you start getting errors, there could be something up, and it's probably worth it to get it checked out, or maybe just to factory reset it.
Okay. A question from, I think it's Danielle Sinclair. Is there a website where we can verify documentation? We're currently getting a lot of claims where people fabricate medical certificates from legitimate medical facility and or treating physician. Is there a quicker way, such as a website, to determine whether the medical certificates are fake and or fabricated?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a number of industry bodies that have been created. I would use those as a first port of call. So I know Aziza is the insurance sector where they work together, and the South African Fraud Prevention Service, for example, they collate, especially from a retail point of view, a lot of what are scammers, and you can block things, for example. So I would look at those as first port of calls. I don't specifically know of a document that can actually, you're going to have to, that's where I think you're going to have to rely on your human senses to actually look at the document and inspect it in great detail. You can sometimes see when a PDF, for example, has been manipulated, where they've used Photoshop, and they're not often very, very good at doing that.
Okay, thank you. And then there was a couple of questions on cookies. The question in specific from Gail is, should we be clicking on accept cookies when accessing websites?
Yeah, so the whole thing came around with, say, for example, from EU with GDPR, where you have to accept certain things. I mean, cookies, for the large part, are normally innocent because it makes your browsing easier. It remembers your settings, and unfortunately, marketers are using it. So the example I gave about the perfume earlier that I prepared on Takealot, now when I'm searching on the internet, it's popping up with that perfume following me around all over the place. So what I would recommend for your personal devices, we've moved on to using a browser called Brave. And Brave has got, it's like Chrome, but it's got a lot more security and privacy elements built into it. And it basically flushes your sessions after every time you visit a website to clear cookies or limit you being tracked and things along those lines. So sometimes you can't actually access a site unless you accept its cookie. So obviously visit legitimate sites and utilize a browser like Brave, because it adds a whole lot of extra security and privacy to your life.
Great, thank you. What software or apps are you recommending for cell phones and personal laptops? I suppose from a security perspective and prevention perspective.
Yeah. So that's where you're going to be careful as well, because you can go and download what you think is an anti-malware, antivirus program, and it's actually malware that you've loaded on your computer. So what I would recommend is so there's legitimate sites that do reviews, like Software Mag, for example, or PC Weekly, and they do reviews of either commercial or free pieces of software. I can post a link in just now as well, and or one of my team members can post it in as well, and rather go and utilize those ones. So they actually rate them, and it's actually quite good to choose the right ones. You know, even those the software that I highlighted for protecting your child's devices, there's also more commercial ones that you can go and buy, like Kaspersky Safe Kids or Net Nanny, that runs across multiple devices and gives you a centralized control over things like that as well. So there's a lot of good stuff out there, but the most important thing is still the human element, communication, talking to your kids, you know, sharing this sort of stuff with them as well is the best.
100%. And then I think just as a last question, there was some queries on LinkedIn and whether LinkedIn is safe, whether there are good firewalls on LinkedIn, how careful should we be around accessing of LinkedIn and I suppose accepting connection requests.
Yeah, I mean, so all the big social media platforms have been hacked at some instance, even security companies are getting hacked. So everyone gets targeted, but they have got very good security in place, like the cloud providers and all of that. They have to. So they spend billions in terms of their security, but you've got to take it a step further. So they provide you the security tools, but you've got to enable them. So what we always say to people is, please, when you're using social media, cloud platforms, don't just stick with the default username and password. Go and enable those extra steps. Go and tighten up your security and privacy settings, for example, so that it makes it hard for people to log in as you and then impersonate you and steal money from your friends and family who trust and love you.
100%. Everyone, I know that there are so many questions, but unfortunately we are running out of time. We will endeavor to forward the questions onto Craig and try to get them answered for you. On behalf of the GWII, we would just like to thank Craig and Wolfpack. Craig, thank you so much. It's been such an informative session. And thank you very much for your donation of the 20 hard copy covers of your book. As Craig mentioned, the winners have been selected by the team at Wolfpack, and we will get in contact with all of the winners for your addresses and then arrange to have those books delivered to you. We'd like to thank Emerald for sponsoring of this session. We're not able to do the things that we do without the generosity of our sponsors. So thank you, Emerald. And once again, thank you for agreeing to get the books delivered to the winners. And a very big thank you to our digital partner, CN&Co, for their ongoing support. Lastly, we'd just like to thank all of you for joining the session. I think you'd agree that it was really an excellent session to attend. And we look forward to seeing you at one of our next Gauteng Women in Insurance in-person events or at our next CPD. That's it from us. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.